Okay, it is time to create our first enemy. Right, so let's just look what is out there. On the sprite as resource I found this cute cloud which looks pretty nasty. So that's what I'm going to use for my enemy. So first of all, I'll save the image to my download folder. Minimize this window now. And then I open it. And as we see, the image has a background, right? This pink background which we need to get rid of in order to make a transparent sprite. So I open it in my image editor. In Mac it's Pixelmator. You can use, there are several options on Windows as well. And I'm going to use this magic wand to select the background, right? If you are using Mac and a Pixelmator, you need to make sure that the smooth edges are not turned on, right? I'll show you why. So if I select the background now, right, and I zoom in, you see that the edges are being cut off, right? So it's trying to smooth out the edges. So I'm just gonna turn that functionality off. So I'm gonna select my magic wand again, and I'm gonna turn off the smooth edges, and I'm reselect everything, and I see that it nicely selects the whole pixel animation. Now I just delete the background, and now all I want is to crop the image because I don't need this bottom part. And now I'll just save it, right? So you don't see the menu, but I'll click on File, Export, and I click on Export to PNG, and I'll export it into my projects Mario Tutorial Sprites folder, so directly into my Unity application, and I name it Cloud Enemy, right? So that will do it. Going back to my editor, to Unity, I go to a Cloud Enemy, to my sprite folder, and as I see, the Cloud Enemy has only one sprite currently, which is the image itself, right? So I need to create a new animation. So first of all, I'm gonna mark this sprite as a multiple sprite, right? So that it's a sprite sheet. Just gonna reduce the size to save a little bit of memory. And now I click on Sprite Editor. Minimize it so you see the whole window. Put it a bit smaller. This image looks like it's in a grid layout, so let's just try that, which would be the easiest way. So I go onto the grid layout and I click on Slice. I set 49 pixels by 49 pixels, which seems about correct. But looking at it, we have a problem in here. Let's try with 50. Slice. No, unfortunately, as you see, it's not laid out in a grid mode. I have to go to the automatic mode, and then I'll have to manually readjust all the slices, right? So once I did this, now I see it got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, several slices, which I don't think they're correct. For example, this one wasn't even detected. So the goal now is to basically make each slice at least the same height, right? So that the animation will play nicely. And then also what I'll do, I'm gonna put all the slices in a sense that I'll start the slice from the leftmost part where the cloud starts, right? So let's just do that, right? So it's pretty good. So I'm trying to make the height the same for all tiles, and then keeping to the left part of the tile. Right, so that should do it. Now I click on Apply. I have all the slices of my animation. I can close the sprite editor. And now when I click back onto my sprites, I see that I have all the slices in here, right? So looking down here, I can see how my animation will happen. Right, so that's pretty good. Quite happy with that. One last thing that I'll do, I'm going to make this a bit bigger so that the... No, let's actually stay with 100. All right. Okay, so let's create our first enemy. So let's create a new game object. So let's name it enemy. Just like with the previous models, I think it's a good practice to put a sprite as a child object of this game object. So let's name it sprite. This facilitates the positioning and so on. And let's just use the first sprite to preview, right? So, and this is, there we go, there's our enemy. Okay, it is quite small, so if I put my Mario next to it, so I go to my resources Mario tile, as we see the Mario is quite huge comparing to the cloud, so I do have to modify the size of that sprite. So going back to my cloud sprite, I'm going to basically double the size of it, so I say 50. And then the cloud is about the correct size right now. That's great. So now I can get rid of Mario for now. Right, so what do I want to do now? Now I want to... Alright, so now as we see, when I'm moving my sprite up and down, I want that sprite to be positioned from the bottom left corner, just like Mario, right? So if I put back Mario, yeah, so having Mario's positioning at the bottom center, so I want to do the same for the sprite itself, right? So I'm going to change the position. I'm going to facilitate this, I'm going to move this to the beginning of the coordinate space. And now I'm going to select the sprite itself, and I'm going to move it to the cell. Sorry. So position about here, and then X in the middle. Right, so that would be about correct. So now, when I go to my movement, I have my sprite in the middle of the coordinate space, which is exactly how I like it. Another option here, to get really nice numbers, not to play with these numbers, is to make sure that the sprites, each of the sprites is 100 by 100 pixels big. That's exactly 1 meter by 1 meter. And in that case, we get much nice numbers, but we don't have time to do that right now. So, all right, so we have our enemy visualized. So let's create an animation on our enemy, right? So what we'll do is we'll add an animator component onto our cloud, and we'll create a new animator. So we'll go to animations, and then we create a new animation controller called Cloud Animator. And we're going to assign that animator to the cloud. Right. Now we're going to select the cloud, and we're going to go to the window menu, and then we'll turn on animations. Animation. Right. Just gonna parent it in here. All right, and now we click on, all right, so with our sprite selected, or enemy, depends where you position your animator, you click on animation and create, and then we'll just say movement animation, right? And we'll save it in a bit better spot. We'll save it into our animations folder. Save, right? And all we need to do now is select those frames of the animation. So we'll go to sprites, and then all the cloud enemy animations we'll put in here. So now when we play this, now we have to get rid of Mario for now. When we play this now, let me just put a scene here on the side so we'll actually see the cloud. Don't mind the right part for now. So when we play this, we have one of the frames jumping out a little bit, so we'll have to figure out which one is that. Right. Okay, so I found out that the problem with this jumping animation was this last frame, which is incorrectly positioned. So removing that frame will produce a good animation. Right, so now it's not jumping anymore. It was probably just badly cut. And I kind of don't like that sudden stop of the mouth movement. So what I'll do, I'll just add 2 more frames in here so that the cloud will nicely close the mouth. One more time, just the next frame. Number 6. Right, so I'll have I have opening, closing mouth, and then okay, I'm pretty happy with this animation. Now the last thing that I'll do is I will have that cloud moving left and right, and I'll also add a script which will detect the collisions with player and possibly kill the player. Okay. So we will reuse now the script from the platform. So we can reuse exactly the same script as with the platform. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to add a rigid body onto that, and we say that the gravity doesn't apply and all the other things. So we will just say that it's a kinematic, and we will freeze the rotation Z so it doesn't fall into the depth. And we say interpolation to interpolate. Don't worry about it, just do it to interpolate. And the rest of the parameters look pretty good. So the next thing that I'll add is my platform movement script. Maybe I should rename it, but that's alright. So I set left and right. I'll set the span to 1 meter left and right. And I'll set the speed to 1, which is about correct. So let me just test it in this window in here. Alright, so the cloud is moving nicely left and right. I can even, it's not going to be very challenging. So I'm just going to set the speed to 3 and increase the span. That's maybe too fast in here, so let's just set the speed to 1.5, which will be alright. Okay. Now, so now I have a cloud that is moving left and right. One thing that I particularly don't like is that the cloud keeps backing up. Right? I would rather have cloud going left and right. Right, so when it would actually change the direction going left and right. Okay, so I'm going to add a new script, and I'll name that script new C# script, and I'll name it auto flip. Create and add. Okay. Now it will appear in our root folder, so I'll just copy it to my scripts folder, and I'll open it in my editor. Just put it in here. Alright, and now I will just write the script, and I'll let you know what exactly it does. Okay, I'm done with my script, and it's quite simple, right? The idea with this, behind this script is that I'm going to use the local scale of the object. So if I select my enemy object and I start scaling it according to x coordinate, I can flip the object exactly just setting a negative scale, right? So just by setting this x value, I can flip the object basically facing the opposite direction. So in my script, autoflip, I remember what was my last position on the x-axis, and if that last position was bigger than my current position, that means that I'm going to the left, otherwise I'm going to the right. And then if I'm going to the left, I set my x coordinate to 1, my scale x to 1, otherwise I flip my scale, right? This is just a debug message which you can get rid of. Now I save my script, and when I go back to my game and I play this, I see that my cloud is nicely moving left and right, and it's flipping itself correctly. Right? So our enemy is shaping up pretty nicely. So the next thing that we need to do is to handle the collisions with the enemy, right? So I'm going to add a collider on our enemy, which probably the best one will be the circle collider. And I'm going to move it a bit around the object itself, and the small radius. This should be about right. Okay, now we'll also say that it's a trigger. Trigger would be that I can pass through the object and do specific activity, so I'll just keep the trigger to null. Okay, now the next thing that I'll need to do is add a new script onto my cloud, and that will be a script which tells the player that it died when it collided with this cloud, right? We can be less brutal and add a script that just reduces the health, but for now the Mario will certainly die. Alright, so I'll name this object, name this script kill player on collision. Right. And once again in here I'll just move it to my scripts folder. Great. Open my script, and once again I'll finish typing the script and then I'll explain what I've done. Okay, so the script that I've produced is very simple. And basically when a player, so that is the game object with the tag player, enters the collision, that is our on collision enter 2D function, I basically just reload the current level. Right? So let's see the behavior. When I run this and I move my Mario, the moment the cloud collides with us, we die. Okay. So once we are happy with our enemy, and I can say I'm quite happy, we'll add it into our list of tiles. So we go into the resources, and then we drag and drop the enemy and create a prefab out of it. Right, and now we can just disable it for now, just like with the other ones, if you want to tweak it later. And now I'll go to my level manager, and let's look at the design of the level that we've produced. So level 1, we expect the enemy be on this platform 2, and let's just put him on the same enemy over the platform close to the player, right? So we save this, and now in the level manager we just drag and drop the enemy onto our ID2. Right? And now, if everything went well, our enemy is being correctly displayed on the position where we expect it. And it should appear also on the second platform. Beautiful. One thing I don't like is that the enemy is very close to the ground, right? This is kind of what I don't like. And now you'll see how easy this will be to fix. So what I'll do, I'll go back to my enemy, just enable it, focus it here on the scene, and I'll just move it back to the beginning of the coordinates, and then I'll move the sprite a bit up, right? So I'll move it about here, so it will be quite above the ground. Now I apply the changes, so I click on apply here. I disable this one, and then I click on apply. And as we see, the enemy is now much higher above the ground. Our game is starting to shape up pretty nicely.